my son grew up here. We moved to Wrightwood in December of 1985 when he was 3.5 years old. And he grew up here, went to Wrightwood Elementary School, Indian Mesa Middle School, and graduated from Serrano High School in 2000.
And did he go to journalism school?
No, at that point he wanted to study film, and he went to UC Santa Barbara for 2 years, and he decided he really didn't like Santa Barbara, and he wanted to transfer to San Francisco State. So he transferred to San Francisco State in fall of 2002. He ended up majoring in psychology because he had enough units in that as well, and he would have had to repeat a whole cycle of film history because UC's on the quarter system and San Francisco State's on the semester system, and he was missing this one little piece that overlapped both semesters. So he graduated just May of 2006, 2 months before he went to jail. I was really relieved that he graduated because this would have really thrown off his education. I think his original interest was film and documentary filmmaking, and so he began to film what was around him. You know, it's like, unless you can come out of NYU or USC, it's not easy to break into the world of film. So I think part of his thinking was, well, if I can start making films and start getting known in my field, then I'm just going to make my own career path that way. And he was being very successful. He was networking very well. He spoke at BloggerCon in San Francisco. He was on a panel with 3 people who spoke about politics and blogging. He had gotten a job at Peralta Community College Television as director of media outreach, and that was before he even graduated from school. And they're holding his job at least till July for him. His boss is very supportive. So he really was making a lot of connections. He was interviewed by a French TV station, interviewing bloggers, people doing stuff over here. And he had a lot of connections. He did not need this to make connections. This was just one of his routine things. Hey, there's a march, I'll go down and videotape it. No big deal. And he was excited that Kron wanted to buy some of it. And
how do you spell Kron?
Kron Carolyn TV. And they made a pre-arrangement with him, I think, to pay for it. But then the other TV stations were showing it, and so he wrote them letters and said, well, you have to pay me if you use my stuff. So that seemed really exciting, like, wow, not only are you filming, but you're getting paid for it. That's great. And then the next thing we know, that same great throws him in jail. And it leaves you in a position where people don't know whether they should dare to take pictures, whether they should record information or not, because it could land them in jail. And I think that may be the attempt at the administration, but it's not to the good of our people, because it means we are not getting all the news, because people are afraid to look into stories or speak about stories or videotape stories that could ever cause a problem. I mean, I was at one of Josh's press rallies before he went to jail, and a young NLG intern was there. She said she had been at the Israel-Palestine peace, I don't know, it was something that went right then with Lebanon and everything, and her friend was a photographer, and her friend said, I don't know if I should take pictures because of that. You know, it's like you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you could be stuck in jail. And any American citizen could be put in jail for 18 months for non-cooperation with the grand jury. I should have said that when I was up there. Forgot about that. 18 months is what they consider coercive custody. So you can be in jail for 1.5 years and it can still be considered coercive, not punitive. So you've done nothing wrong, you've never been accused of anything, you're just not willing to cooperate, and they can put you in jail for 1.5 years. And that's longer than you could be put in jail for a lot of crimes.
Can you explain to me, and also to our readers, what kind of a stand he's taking, who he's protecting?
Well, I don't really think he is protecting anybody.
How much are the shirts?
15. I think he is protecting the First Amendment. he's protecting the rights of journalists to not be asked to identify and disclose testimony. Now, there's been a lot of discussion because this was not a you talk to me and I'm not, and I won't tell anybody. This was a large crowd scene. So it's kind of a little more complicated than it usually is. Although they were ready to throw the 2 Chronicle reporters in jail until that case just broke recently. And they were under contempt for 18 months also. But they worked for the Hearst Corporation. They hadn't had to go to jail. So it's really about... That's my train of thought.
Well, it's a crowd scene, so it's kind of complicated.
Because the people there are people that he knows because he's filmed them before, he's gone to some of their meetings. They let him in to film. He was able to get close to the policeman choking Gabe Myers because he knows these people. So, in a sense, if they feel that he's filming them and then his tape is going to be turned over to the government, they would see him acting as an agent of the state and not trust him to have access to this protest group. So it's kind of hard to see, but there's an implied trust there that says, we know you, we'll let you film us, and we know you're not going to turn things over to the government.
It's the same with any source. In order to talk, they need to feel that they're
Except that
talking
what the government is saying is this isn't the same because you never gave them a written or verbal promise of confidentiality. It was kind of implied. It's implied, but it's not. You didn't come to me and say, well, I'll tell you this if you don't tell anyone. So that seems to have been part of the difficulty in this. And then the reality is that journalists have no protection under federal law anyway. So whether this was a confidential source that had said that wouldn't make any difference. We have no federal shield law. And we didn't need a federal shield law until after Brandenburg in, what was that, 1972. We didn't need a federal shield law. And maybe because Josh did go to journalism school, he didn't know about Brandenburg. I certainly didn't. Until I was sitting there in the courtroom listening to the judge and the attorneys, and they keep throwing this word Brandenburg around, and I'm thinking, what is Brandenburg? And I really didn't understand it until I saw the front one, the series. And then I thought, what happened? I was growing up in the 60s. We had the Earl Warren Court. We had a Supreme Court. Pick your size. We have youth medium or medium medium. Just rummage through, okay? I know there's mediums in there because I saw a bunch of them. Actually, I have a note that your mom and dad...
Just say one more time about how the government is viewing this as different than traditional protection of sources.
Because there wasn't any confidentiality agreement?
Well, it's like they bring it up, but then it's kind of a moot issue because there is no protection in federal court for journalists. So on one hand, they say, well, this isn't an issue of confidentiality because it's a crowd, it's a group. But on the other hand, they say, even if it was, it wouldn't matter. Because if a grand jury subpoenas, you have a choice. You go to jail or you give them what they want. Those are your 2 choices.
Even if you're a journalist.
Even if you're a journalist. There is no journalist protection in this country anymore except under state shield laws. And almost every state has shield laws, either by congressional mandate or by judicial decisions that have...
What about California?
California has a really strong shield law.
Yeah, but your son still went to jail, though.
But it wasn't in a California court.
It's federal court. Okay.
Why is that?
Because they came up with this lame excuse from the Patriot Act. In the Patriot Act, there's this little provision, and I don't know its number, but it says something to the effect of arson or attempted arson or use of any incendiary